Hey everyone, it is Shannon, and I'm here today to talk about First Summoning for 31 Days of Horror 2019. Let's take a look at the details. This is directed by Raymond Wood, who directed The Canadu. The cast includes Teddy Cole, Hayley Lovill, Brook Todd, Ace Harvey, and Jason MacDonald. As always, there will be a link down below to the IMDb page if you would want to check out the details. This film came out in 2018 on the festival circuit, and it also has a release date of 2019 for online and for Netflix. And I don't know if it said Netflix on IMDb. It might have just said online. I'm not sure. I think Netflix lists it as 2019. I think that's what it was. This definitely falls under the genre of horror and then the subgenre of Vérité film or found footage film. And I gave it a 6 out of 10. Or a 2.5 out of 5, and this one did not get a heart. So First Summoning, let's take a look. Okay, so the one thing I will say is that I did not know anything about this movie going into it. It was a complete random selection. I decided that I was going to just open Netflix, and the first film that it listed under horror that I had not seen, I would watch. And that is what I got. First Summoning, and it was like an hour and a half, and I'm like, I have an hour and a half, let's watch this movie. So that's how I picked it. So I didn't know anything about it going into it. It was very clear very soon that it is a Vérité style film, a found footage style film. So like Cloverfield, Blair Witch, Wreck, Quarantine, you know, this the last Exorcism. So I've watched a fair amount of these, and I do tend to enjoy them. And although this one I didn't think was awesome, to be truthful, I did get something really interesting from it. So it's weird because I had very low expectations going in, and as it started I was kind of like, oh, okay, so this is like we're doing one of these films, we're watching, okay, so it's like a little clip of this, a little clip of that, a bunch of different video cameras, and it follows someone who has made one film that has been very successful and is on the hunt to make the next film. It feels like it's been a while since the successful film came out, so they're a little on edge, and so that is arguably the protagonist, but it is more of an ensemble. But he's the director, and then we have his girlfriend who sounds like she's a photographer, but she decided to help out with this and doing, you know, video, and then two guys that worked on a previous project. So that's sort of the group of four that make up the filmmakers, and the filmmaker and the filmmaking team, and we usually get from up to three or more, I'll get there, up to 3 different video cameras. But it's usually 2 because there's an interviewer, and the director sometimes films, sometimes doesn't film, but it does cut little cuts images from one thing to the other to the other. Now, okay, so there's two main things that I took from this film. One is that this really is now its own subgenre of film, not just the Vérité style film, which we've seen in different kinds of movies, but this particular thing of either following a team of filmmakers or following a team of paranormal investigators that are looking for something paranormal, and they may or may not be believers, or maybe a combination of skeptics and believers, and then things go horribly wrong. So that is actually, I feel like, its own subgenre, either filmmakers or paranormal investigators, you know, found footage style film, things go horribly wrong, it's a horror movie, and this is one of many that I've seen over the recent years. There's been lots of them, and lots of them over time. So although I would say I had challenges with this film, I didn't, you know, there were things that didn't seem to add up, there were things that didn't seem to make sense, there were things that people did that I didn't think were believable. I just sort of relaxed into that this is its own subgenre, and that different, and many films, like many film style, like there's many subgenres of film: zombie movies, a lot of horror movies, vampire movies, stalker movies, and you know, and you're just along for the ride. Like, it happens to be different people in a slightly different plot, but you're gonna hit the same marks. You're gonna hit the, you know, the arguments, the half-seen discussions, the no one's a believer until something happens, and then the disagreement on whether to continue to film or not. Like, it has these earmarks, and once I relaxed into that, I just sort of enjoyed it. But even though there were lots of things that I had challenges with, and I was like, not believing that, not believing that, but along for the ride. So that is really what I took from this film, is that this is its own subgenre, and if you're in the mood for watching a movie that's like that, there are lots to enjoy. So that's what I really took from it. On the flip side to things, there were definitely some things that I would be nitpicky about. I was like a little. There are very few women in the film other than the girlfriend, and like they even like did a bunch of interviews on the street and like to this town, because there's this, it's a very traditional of this style film. They want to go, they hear about a legend, a paranormal sort of legend, and or a horror, like out of a haunted building ish, or something happened nobody knows, but nobody goes there. So they're interviewing people on the street, and all of the people they interview are guys. It's like, do no women live in this town? Like it was just really strange. Like, and that was one of the moments I got a little skeptical, because I'm just like, they talked to like, I don't know, 5, 7 people, and like they were all guys, and I'm like, that's just a bit weird. Like it really feels strange that you just wouldn't talk to women as well as men or kids. Like why not have, why not switch things up unless it's part of the story? And it didn't appear to be part of the story. My other nitpick with this is that there was a lot of not great shots so that we could tell that we are watching someone filming something. So for the same example where they're interviewing people on the street, there's one point where like, you see the interviewer and you see the interviewee, but none of them are looking at the camera. Neither of them are looking at the camera. It's at not a great angle, and at one point someone else was sort of like half in the shot, and I'm like, or like obscured the shot, and I'm like, if you're making a movie and you're doing interviews and you're filming them, I imagine you are going to use said interviews, so somebody should be looking into the camera at some point. Like it was just purposefully done so that we know these are people filming something. Like, so and like, how much does it matter? I don't know. So there is that. And and then along the same vein, one of the challenges in this type of subgenre, or this, these Vérité style films, is, and so this isn't a spoiler for this movie, but this is a spoiler for the genre. So if you enjoy these as they are, this would be the time to stop watching, because I am going to break the fourth wall here. Not literally, but this is something that I noticed, and once I noticed it, I couldn't go to not noticing it. Which is the fact that if it's a found footage film or a Vérité style film and it's edited, like it's not just chronological. We do have some of them that are simply chronological. You're watching a tape or a video card from start to finish, and that's it. So it's just stop, start, stop, start. So there are some films that are like this. This one isn't. This is edited. Who edited it? Who edited this film? Why did they edit it? How are we watching it? And I think you need to address that. Usually there is a thing in the intro saying, this is compiled from found footage. That is the explainer bit. This one didn't have that. It started with like screener copy. So it is technically, I guess it's supposed to be a submission of a film, but okay, now we're going into super spoiler territory, so I'm going to spoil the end of the movie here, so I'll let anyone who doesn't want to know what happened go away. So super spoiler, none of the filmmakers make it out alive. So who edited the film and why would they submit it? Or I guess one possibility is it was all a ruse, that none of it was real. They were making a movie, but then why would they submit it? Why wouldn't they end it with a scene at a festival or someone watching the film submission? Now, this is a bit of a nitpick, as I said, and it doesn't always have to address it. And addressing it does let the audience know what to expect, but and there are different ways to address this. Some films are more likely to, have the camera just fall over at some point and that be the end. Is that a more, successful ending or a more gratifying ending than having like it all come to a close or knowing what happens at the end? How much do you want to suspend your disbelief? How much are you just like, oh, no, it's okay. It's a horror movie and it's going to do its thing, you know? But for me, that whether it's edited or not leads me to ask the question, how are we as a viewer seeing this? And the reason why it particularly was noticeable in this film was that they use footage for cameras they didn't set up. So there were actually moments, so we have them like running around being scared, like getting to all the scary bits of the film. But then we'll have an edited thing of like a security camera for a building that they never set up. So because there's only 4 people and then it gets less. So how, like, where is the footage? How did the footage come together? So I don't know. Let me know. Do you think about stuff like that when you're watching these types of movies, or do you just like freak out at all the scary bits? Because this one of the questions I always have is, was this scary? And I would say, yeah, I got scared, and it did do the tension well, because it has the air, like, you know what to expect, but it's still scary, and there's lots of jump scares, and there's lots of unnerving things, and there's lots of, like the person who you think is a little strange. Are they really going to be the one that does something really strange? And then all of the other, but there was lots of, this is one movie that there's lots of stuff to nitpick on, so I'm not going to really super do that, because they've also really taken it to task to a couple things. But I'll say one more, and that was, there was a lot of voiceovers to things that people may or may not say in the moment. Like, so you're following a camera person, there's no one else in the scene, so you get dialogue from the camera person. So sometimes it makes sense when you see something and it's hard to understand what you're seeing, and someone's saying, what is that? That makes sense. Some things that are less make sense are a door. Like, look, a door. It's like, people have, like, you've seen a door. You knew you were going into a house, so it's not unusual to encounter the front door. Like, didn't need to be said. So there were moments like that was like, oh, yeah, that's a little too much. But again, I think stuff like that is done to remind the audience that we are following a camera person and no one else from the filmmaker team is in front of the camera. So it's to create mood, but I felt like they did it too often, especially with one of the particular characters. There was lots of voiceover, I think, because they were the least in the visual film. They did the most filmmaking. There were also, I will give it props in some ways though, because there were some scenes that I did not know and could not figure out in a good way who we were watching being filmed. So someone was filming 2 people having a conversation, and like overhearing a conversation. This is how you get the story going with the relationships. But sometimes it was clear who it was, sometimes it wasn't clear who it was. And that created a lot of good tension in terms of trying to figure out the motivations for the characters on wanting to stay with or not stay with the project, or wanting to push the other characters into things or not into things. So I felt like they did do a lot of interesting things from that perspective. And so that did make it enjoyable and engaging, and you do, like, because it's quiet and you're like listening, and and that creates a sense of like closeness. And then of course something really scary could happen, and then like this one, I actually think there were moments where I was like, should I stop this and watch this later, because is it too scary? But it's because there are lots of jump scares and stuff like that and unnerving things, but it does go into but I would say some of the things did end up feel like not super satisfying. Like, I don't feel like I knew like why any of the things were happening. They set up parts of the story that you can go this one place and do this ritual, and then anything you want can be granted, but there is a big price. And they go and do it and do the ritual. They don't ask for anything, but they pay a big price. So is it something to lure people in? It felt unresolved. There were several things like that felt unresolved, and like some movies like this, they did sort of just throw it all down to like, like just that it was ritualistic stuff, so like, was it people? Was it something supernatural? I do not actually know the answer to that. Was it a combination of the two things? I don't know. So it's a bit of a weird one, but I would say that it was scary. I would say that it was a fun film to throw into the mix. It's not, it's probably, I don't even well, I'm not ranking these one versus the other, but part of the fun was to not know anything about it and to go in. And as I said already, that for me, one of the things I really got from it was this idea that this is its own subgenre now. Like, we have come far enough from Cloverfield and Blair Witch and Wreck, and these films that we actually have, or the Paranormal Activity films, and there was another one I mentioned, The Last Exorcism. Like, we have come far enough that these are their own kind of subgenre, and I think that's cool because I do tend to like them, and you know, some of them are better than others. This one I did find was enjoyable. It did have some loose ends, it did have some questions, but I did find it was overall an enjoyable watch and entry to this year's 31 Days of Horror. So let me know, have you watched First Summoning? What are your thoughts? What are your thoughts on found footage Vérité style films? What's your favorite? Or do you avoid them like the plague? I know some people with the like sort of with the cameras moving and stuff that they can't watch them. I don't have a problem with that at all. It's one of the, I think that's because I can't see in 3D. So it doesn't tend to bother me. So I guess that's the payoff. So I don't see in 3D, but these movies, I can watch them all the time. It's a weird payoff. It's not even a payoff because I didn't get to choose, so it's a weird trade-off, I guess. So there you go. Those are my really long, rambly thoughts on First Summoning.